We actually have 4 members of the committee on the floor now, which means we constitute a quorum. So if y'all will go ahead and get logged in, we'll go ahead and get started. All right, so good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Wednesday, March 30th, 2022 meeting of the Finance Executive Committee. I'm Alex Wan. I serve as chair of the committee. I'm joined by my colleagues. To my left, Councilmember Keisha Waits. To my right, Council Members Jason Dozier and Jason Winston. Like I said, with that, we constitute a quorum. This meeting is now officially called to order. First item on the agenda is adoption of the agenda. I'll entertain a motion to approve. Motion by Dozier, seconded by Winston. I will make one comment, though. We are flipping the agenda today. We're going to do the legislative items first and do the presentations at the end. I understand that Councilmember Shook did share that information at briefing on Monday. So with that, we have a motion to adopt the agenda. Again, motion by Dozier, seconded by Winston. If there's no further discussion, let's open that vote, please. All right, 4 yeas, 0 nays. The motion carries. The agenda is adopted. Next item is approval of the minutes. Can I get a motion on those, please? Moved by Dozier, second by Winston. I was looking at Waits, thinking she might do it. All right, that motion is properly made and seconded. Let's open that vote, please. Vote is open. 4 yeas, 0 nays. Motion carries. The minutes are approved from the previous meeting. All right, that takes us to public comment. I do not see a list of folks. Okay, we do not have anyone signed up for public comment for this meeting. All right, so that we will move on. Again, we're skipping presentations and putting those at the end. That'll take us to the consent agenda, item G, ordinances for first reading. We have 2 items to sound. If the staff would do that, please.
Item number 1 is 22-0-1263, an ordinance by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the Chief Financial Officer or his designee to amend the FY 2022 General Fund Budget and Capital Finance Fund Budget by transferring funds in an amount not to exceed $500,000.00 by anticipating and appropriating funds to and from the accounts listed below for the purpose of funding projects and programs that span across multiple fiscal years. And item number 2 is 22-0-1264, an ordinance by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee to waive Section 21163C, Article 10 of the Procurement and Real Estate Code of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances to ratify services rendered in connection with FC 9013. Cost allocation consulting services with MGT of America Incorporated on behalf of the Department of Finance to enter into amendment number 1 on a month-to-month basis for a period not to exceed 4 months effective from April 14, 2022 through August 14, 2022 in an amount not to exceed $95,930.00. All contract award to be charged to pay from the fund, department, organization, and account numbers listed and for other purposes.
Thank you. With those, we have no action to take, and we will pick those back up in the next cycle. Just want to also share that we've been joined by Councilmember Howard Shook, who's also vice chair of the committee. All right, that takes us to the regular agenda. Item H, ordinances for second reading. This first item is 22-0-1238, an ordinance by Finance Executive Committee waiving the requirements of Chapter 2, Article 9, Division 1, Section 2-910 of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances entitled Grant Applications and authorizing the mayor or his designee to apply for and accept the Coronavirus Emergency Supplemental Funding Program grant from the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council on behalf of the Mayor's Office of Immigrant Affairs and to amend the fiscal year 2022 budget in the amount of $10,000.00 to anticipate and appropriate CESF program grant funds in an amount not to exceed $10,000.00 and for other purposes. Who from the administration will be speaking to this paper? Are they here? If you can come up to the microphone, please introduce yourself, and if you'll tell us about this paper, please. And we have a special guest star today, Councilmember Dustin Hillis.
Yes, my name is Peter Pimentel, and I work in the Mayor's Office of Immigrant Affairs as the Community Outreach Specialist. I'm filling in for Holly Malerba, our Victim Service Program Manager.
All right, Can you tell us a little bit about this paper and what it does?
Yes, so the purpose of this grant is to make up for some of the funding that we lost. So we have a VOCA grant that allows us to provide victim services to Atlanta's foreign-born population. And so the VOCA funding was cut by 20%, and this is a federal funding issue. So we are looking to get this extra money to kind of make up for the missing funding that we need there.
All right, thank you. Any questions from my colleagues? Motion from Shook to approve. Is there a second? Seconded by Winston. If there's no further discussion, let's open that vote, please.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 5 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable.
Motion carries. This paper is approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's it. Next item is under I, Resolutions, 22-R3344. Resolution by council members Waits, Boone, Bond, Westmoreland, Winston, Dozier, Bakhtiari, Wan, Shook, Hillis, Overstreet, and Lewis requesting the Commissioner of the Department of Human Resources and the Office of Labor and Employee Relations review the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances and Policies and Procedures concerning protective measures in place for employees who report work environments considered hostile or discriminatory and for other purposes. I have noted here that Mr. Norman from Department of Human Resources, Commissioner, if you're going to speak to this.
Good afternoon, Councilmember Watt. So recognize that Councilmember Waits is here. We have had an opportunity to review the resolution, and so we've already engaged with our Office of Employee and Labor Relations so that we can gather the information and provide a presentation. I believe it's on April 26th. We've also engaged with the law department so that we make sure that we get the appropriate legal guidance as well regarding the hostile work environment. So we will be prepared on the 26th to provide a full and robust presentation for Finance Executive.
Very good. Questions or comments from my colleagues? Motion from Shook to approve. Is there a second? Second by Dozier. If no further discussion, let's open that vote, please.
Vote is open. The vote is closed. 5 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable.
The motion carries. This item is approved. Thank you, Commissioner. Next item, 22-R3346, a resolution by Councilmember Dustin Hillis urging the Georgia General Assembly to support Senate Bill 330 entitled the Giving the Gift of Life Act, that upon adoption of this resolution, the municipal clerk shall transmit a true copy to the governor, lieutenant governor, and all members of the Georgia General Assembly and for other purposes. Since we do have Mr. Hillis here as special guest star, do you have any comments on this paper?
I'm just ask my colleagues to support this. This is going to make it easier for organ donors, and I think all of you all, at least my colleagues, and maybe some in the audience know I'm a ICU nurse, so this is a bill put forth by some Republican members of the General Assembly, and just as our mayor is doing, I think it's an opportunity to, work together. Working together works, and we can't agree on everything, but the things we do agree on, we need to come together on and be supportive of one another. So I ask my colleagues to support this. Thank you.
Questions for the author? Motion from Shook to approve. Is there a second? Seconded by Dozier. If there's no further discussion, let's open that vote, please.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 5 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable.
All right, motion carries. This item is approved. All right, next item, 22-R3347, a resolution by council members Boone, Waits, Amos, Hillis, and Overstreet requesting that the Department of Human Resources develop a mandatory training module through the ATL Cloud Learning Management System for all supervisors of classified employees to ensure adherence to the requirements for the resolution of employee grievances as established in Section 114-516 at SEEK of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Atlanta, Georgia, and the Department of Human Resources ensures grievance forms are directly accessible to all classified employees electronically through the city's intranet and for other purposes. Commissioner.
Jeffrey Norman, Commissioner of Human Resources. So we've also had an opportunity to review this resolution. We have started preparation for the training module so that we can add this to our catalog of training that will be allowed to be done at a self-paced module, and we'll also ensure that we get out to the actual frontline facilities as well to do in-person training regarding this, to ensure that we have full clarity regarding this process. But we are on pace to have that done most likely within a 60-day turnaround as provided.
All right, questions for the commissioner or comments on this legislation? Motion from Shook to approve, second. Second by Winston. Let's open the vote, please.
Vote is open. The vote is closed. 5 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable.
5 yeas, 0 nays. Motion carries. This item is approved. Commissioner, Commissioner, while you're up at the podium, let's go ahead and knock out the other one that you have, if that's okay with my colleagues. It's item number 8, 22-R3392, resolution by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee on behalf of the City of Atlanta to enter into an agreement pursuant to the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances, Section 2-1191.1, special procurement to contract number listed, Career Builder, Inc., for employment opportunities, job board services on behalf of the Department of Human Resources in an amount not to exceed $86,520.00. All work to be charged to and paid from accounts listed and for other purposes. Commissioner.
Thank you. Jeffrey Norman, Commissioner of Human Resources. This legislation is to engage Career Builder, and Career Builder serves as the city's job board posting vendor. And so this allows for, our centralized job applicant base. And so this will allow us to continue on with that service.
Questions or comments from my colleagues? Motion from Shook to approve. Is there a second? Second by Dozier. There's no further discussion. Let's open that vote, please.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 5 yeas, 0 nays.
All right, 5 yeas, 0 nays. Motion carries. This item is approved. Thank you, Commissioner. Next, we'll jump back to item number 7, 22-R3348, resolution by Councilmember Andrea L. Boone to urge the Office of the Mayor and Department of Enterprise Assets Management to join the international community and cities across the U.S. in recognizing World Sickle Cell Awareness Day and Sickle Cell Awareness Month by illuminating Atlanta City Hall and Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport and for other purposes. Any questions or comments on Councilmember Boone's paper? Motion from Shook to approve. Is there a second? Second by Dozier. No further discussion. Let's open that vote, please.
Vote is open. The vote is closed. 5 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable.
Motion carries. This item is approved. Next, item number 9, 22-R3393, a resolution by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee to issue task order number listed for contract number listed, job order contracting services, small, F.H. Passion, S.N. Nielsen and Associates, LLC, for multiple facilities, HVAC upgrades and renovations, Phase 2, at Fire Station 5, Fire Station 9, Fire Station 15, and Fire Station 10, on behalf of the Department of Enterprise Asset Management in an amount not to exceed $236,487.79. All work to be charged to and paid from accounts listed and for other purposes. I have a note here that either Mr. Santill or Mr. Davis was going to speak to this. There you are.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Yes, this primarily project is designed to enhance the HVAC controls at the fire station to introduce more quality fresh air into the stations.
All right, any questions from my colleagues? All right, motion from Shook to approve. Is there a second? Second by Dozier. All right, if there's no further discussion, let's go ahead and open that vote, please.
Vote is open. The vote is closed. 5 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable.
Motion carries. This item is approved. Next item, number 10, moving right along here. 22-R3394, resolution by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee to execute sole source agreement SS S1220190 with Interfaith Airport Chaplaincy, Inc., pursuant to Section 2-1191 of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances to provide aviation chaplaincy services at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport for a term of 5 years in an amount not to exceed $300,000. All contracted work will be charged to and paid from account numbers listed herein and for other purposes. Mr. Smith.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. This will allow us to enter into a 5-year agreement with Interfaith Chaplaincy. They'll provide services for emergencies. They'll provide 1 full-time senior chaplain, 4 part-time chaplains, and they'll also arrange for the 40 or so volunteers. We use them for additional customer service, for emergencies, for operating the 3 chapels that we have at the airport in the atrium, Concourse F and Concourse E. They've been providing a valuable service for us, and we'd like to continue with that.
Any questions from my colleagues? Motion from Shook to approve. Is there a second? Second by Dozier. If there's no further discussion, let's open that vote, please.
Vote is open. The vote is closed. 5 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable.
All right, motion carries. This item is approved. Thank you, Mr. Smith. All right, item 11. 22-R3395, a resolution by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee to execute sole source agreement contract number listed with Open Counter Enterprises, Inc. for the purchase of professional services and subscription to hosted services for a term of 3 years with 2 one-year renewal options in an amount not to exceed $447,000.00 and for other purposes. Ms. Holmes.
Good afternoon, Councilmember Juan, council members. My name is Kieta Holmes, Director of Office of Zoning and Development, Department of City Planning. This is a request to renew a sole service contract with Open Counter. It's a service that we use to minimize the number of staff hours that are used to answer questions over the phone. The customer can access the online service, can scope out their project, determine whether or not the project is applicable in what zoning districts, as well as get an estimate of the building permit fees that will be associated with the project.
All right, questions from my colleagues on this paper? Motion from Shook to approve. Is there a second? Seconded by Winston. If there's no further discussion, let's open that vote, please.
Vote is open. The vote is closed. 5 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable.
All right, motion carries. The item is approved. Thank you, Ms. Holmes. All right, we're now on item 12, 22-R3396. A resolution by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the municipal clerk to place a public advertisement in a newspaper of general circulation depicting the tax digest millage rate, tax levy, and other information required per section 48-5-32 of the official code of Georgia, annotated and for other purposes. Mr. McLean.
Good afternoon, council members. This is Lawrence Davis, the Revenue Chief.
Mr. Davis, sorry.
The resolution before you is a mandate by the Georgia Code 48-5-32, which requires each levy authority to provide certain disclosures to the taxpayers prior to the establishment of the annual millage rate and ad valorem tax purpose. The Department of Finance is requesting the Finance and Executive Committee to authorize the Municipal Clerk's Office to place a public advertisement in the local paper advertising the tax digest and the millage rate. This advertisement legislation was put in place to publicize the start of the ad valorem tax mill rate process, as well as it will run for 1 week prior to the meeting date to adopt the millage rate. The Department of Finance will provide council with 2 digest and 1 millage rate. 2 digest and 2 millage rate advertisements in the local paper. One is to align with the procedural millage rate adoption to coincide with the adoption of the annual budget. And the second advertisement will align with the final millage rate adopted once the final digest from Fulton County and DeKalb County are received, which will be after the budget process.
All right, questions for Mr. Davis? Motion from Shook to approve. Is there a second? Second by Dozier. If there's no further discussion, let's open that vote, please.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 5 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable.
All right, motion carries. This item is approved. All right, Mr. Davis, the next item also, colleagues, without objection, we're going to take the next 4 items together. I'll sound them. 22-R3397, a resolution by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to refund $27,284.00 to Birdsey Construction Management, LLC, for the purpose of reimbursing an overpayment of 2021 business license taxes and fees. All funds to be charged to and paid from the Fund Department Organization and account number listed herein and for other purposes. 22-R3398, a resolution by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to refund $467,983.19 to Kona Services, LLC, for the purpose of reimbursing an overpayment of 2017 and 2018 business license taxes and fees. All funds to be charged to and paid from the Fund Department Organization and account number listed herein and for other purposes. 22-R3399, a resolution by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to refund $8,439.84 to Phoenix Automotive Cores for the purpose of reimbursing overpayment of 2021 business license taxes and fees. All funds to be charged to and paid from the Fund Department Organization and account numbers listed herein and for other purposes. And finally, 22-R3400, resolution by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to refund $219,409.72 to Twitter Inc. For the purpose of reimbursing overpayment of 2017 and 18 business license taxes and fees. All funds to be charged to and paid from the Fund Department Organization and account number listed herein and for other purposes. There's a motion for Mr. Shook to approve all 4 items. I do have a question on these. In these instances, what was the cause of the overpayment? I mean, was it just they entered something wrong in our system and the calculation just ended up being based on that incorrect information? And how was it brought to our attention? Is this something that we rely on the businesses to initiate
Our system,
or do we have some sort of check on things like this?
All 4 items were due to wrong gross revenue reports.
Okay.
It is based on the estimate. The staff has caught some of them doing their audit, as well as 2 of the companies caught it on their own. So they submitted an amendment and provided the necessary financial documents to prove it. And after that, we felt that we know that they are entitled to the refund.
And is there a time limit after which you cannot come back? I mean, I see these go back 5 years. Is there a statute of limitations on this?
To my knowledge, no, sir.
Okay, so if someone found something from 10 years ago, they could come back and appeal or request?
That is correct, sir.
Okay. Right. Other questions from my colleagues? So motion from Shook to approve. Is there a second? Seconded by Dozier. Oh, they're keeping time on me. Okay. All right, there's a motion from Shook, a second by Dozier. If there's no further discussion, let's open that vote, please.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 5 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable.
All right, motion carries. These 5 items are approved. Thank you, Mr. Davis. All right, that takes us to our next section, dual referred items. The first one, 22-01176, did get acted on by Community Development Human Services Committee, so I'll go ahead and read that caption in. An ordinance by Councilmember Jason Dozier authorizing the Department of Procurement to issue a purchase order and for grants and accounting to update accounting information associated with cooperative agreement number listed for workforce service delivery providing adult dislocated worker and youth services between Atlanta Workforce Development Agency, also known as Workforce Atlanta, and Arbor ENT LLC, doing business as Equus Workforce Solutions, to use Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act grant awards FY21, 36 adult FY21 dislocated worker and FY20 youth to pay outstanding obligations of $597,551.54. All services to be charged to and paid from the accounts listed herein and for other purposes. This came out of CDHS favorable on substitute. Mr. Dozier, I don't know if you want to make any comments to this or offer a motion now that it is here before us. All right, right, there's a motion from Dozier to approve on substitute, seconded by Shook. Any questions on this? All right, seeing none, let's open that vote, please.
The vote is open. Will everyone please vote? The vote is closed. 5 yeas, 0 nays is favorable.
All right, motion carries. This item is approved on substitute. All right, the next item, 22-R3199, is still being held in transportation. And then 22-O1239 was amended in CDHS but held. So therefore, we will not have that before us today. All right, that takes us to, papers held in committee. Colleagues, we do have one coming off, and that is item number 24, 22-O1192. I'm going to read in the caption, but we do have an amendment to this paper that is in your packet. It's an ordinance by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to amend the FY 2022 Water and Wastewater Renewal and Extension Fund budget in the amount of $1,036,889.00 and the FY 2022 DPR Ground and Site Trust Fund budget in the amount of $163,111.00 to anticipate and appropriate funds from a West Side Tax Allocation District grant approved by the Atlanta Development Authority doing business as Invest Atlanta to reimburse costs expended by the Department of Watershed Management and the Department of Parks and Recreation for environmental remediation work conducted at Rodney Cook Senior Park in historic Vine City and for other purposes. Colleagues, the amendment in your packet, Shook has made a motion to amend the paper, and the amendment adds the July 2017 Board of Directors of the Atlanta Development Authority or Invest Atlanta Cook Park Remediation Resolution. There's a motion on the floor. I'll second that. If there's no further discussion, let's go ahead and take a vote on the amendment.
Vote is open. The vote is closed. 5 yeas, 0 nays. The amendment's before you.
All right, motion carries. So, Commissioner Browning, we have the amended paper before us. I don't know if you want to make any additional comments from last time.
Good afternoon, Chairman Wan, members of Finance Committee, Makita Brown, and Commissioner for Department of Watershed Management. Again, this legislation is to appropriate eligible funds from the West Side TAD, approved by Invest Atlanta, to reimburse Department of Watershed Management and Parks and Recreation for environmental remediation work completed as part of the Park and Pond project in historic Vine City. Again, over the course of the project, Department of Watershed Management has conducted environmental remediation of contaminated land and soil to remove dangerous contaminants, allowed to redevelop those parcels in question. Again, the package should have contained the project fact sheet as well as the 2017 resolution that was approved by the Invest Atlanta Board, which put in place the grant money specifically for remediation. Subject to your questions.
All right, questions for the Commissioner. Mr. Shook.
Well, just a comment. I want to thank the Commissioner for working through some issues and bringing this in for a landing. Thank you.
All right, is there a motion to approve this on as amended? I'll put forward that motion. Is there a second? Seconded by Shook. All right, motion by Wan, second by Shook. If there's no further discussion, let's open that vote, please.
Vote is open. The vote is closed. 5 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable as amended.
All right, item is approved as amended. Thank you, Commissioner. All right, Ms. Kempson-Wright, I believe that takes care of all of our legislative items. That might be a record. So now we will have the opportunity to go back and pick up our presentations, and we'll just go ahead and start in the order that they are listed on here. The first one is from Atlanta Information Management, their quarterly update. Jason Sankey is coming up. Colleagues, you should have a copy of the presentation in front of you. All right, Mr. Sankey, I'm sorry, they're having some technical difficulties back there. We do have printed copies, so if you don't mind, go ahead and starting and working from either your memory of the slides or if you have a copy in front of you, we'll follow along on our, oh, wait a minute. But yeah, if you want to go ahead and get started, we're happy to follow you on paper.
Okay. Good afternoon, Chairman Wan and members of the Finance.
It's not lost on me that it's during the AIM presentation.
It looks like it's up. Good afternoon, Chairperson Wan and members of the Finance Executive Committee. Thank you for the opportunity to present today. I'm Jason Sankey, Chief Information Officer representing Atlanta Information Management, or AIM. Next slide, please. I want to start by sharing our vision, our mission, and our core values. Our vision is shaping Atlanta to be a world-class city by enabling the use of innovative technology solutions to serve our residents, businesses, and visitors. And our mission is advancing Atlanta by consistently delivering innovative, reliable, secure, and user-focused technology solutions. Our core values are trust, accountability, collaboration, service, and integrity. Next slide, please. We have gone through a series of reorganizations since I joined the city in June of 2021. We continue to enhance our service delivery model to effectively support the technology needs across the city. This chart represents my executive leadership team. And from a personnel perspective, I would like to point out that we continue to lose staff to the private sector organizations offering higher pay and incentives not currently offered at the city. We also have challenge in recruiting new talent as reflected in the vacant funded yet unfilled positions. We are, however, partnering with local colleges and universities to build a pipeline of talent through internship and apprenticeship opportunities. We will also launch a career fair in the month of April for opportunities available within the department. Next slide, please. As we continue with the fiscal year 23 budget planning session, I wanted to share the general fund budgeting trend for AIM. As you see, there's an overall downward trend. This impacts our ability to fully drive technology needs to advance our city forward. That said, we are working collaboratively with Finance to discuss an increase in fiscal year 23 appropriations. We are currently forecasting just over a $3 million shortfall for fiscal year 22. The main driver for this overage is our citywide cost for cellular data network and cloud services that are currently aligned to the AIM budget. This was also reported by Finance during their presentation to the committee last month. We are working with Finance to true up the projected variance for fiscal year end. We are also exploring a centralized IT service model, which will streamline technology solutions and spend across the city to reduce the total cost of ownership for technology expenditures. This next slide captures our key service delivery metrics. In calendar year 2021, we created approximately 51,000 tickets and we resolved approximately 50,000 tickets. Currently, the average time to resolve tickets is slightly under 24 hours. You will see from the chart from January 2021 through February of 2022, we only hit our target SLAs 6 of those months. This was mainly due to staff turnover as well as resource constraints across multiple areas. We did hire 5 new service desk technicians in November, which has helped with the first level support of tickets. We are also implementing enhancements to the processing of tickets, including setting the appropriate priority levels and realigning the way we categorize tickets for a more accurate representation. This next slide represents the type of incidents we are receiving. As you see, the highest number of tickets are related to access or application issues, followed by troubleshooting and repair issues, technical support, password management, and equipment requests. We are also implementing what's referred to as problem management, And what this discipline does, it adds an extra layer of oversight to determine whether or not there's a broader problem causing repeated tickets. And the goal of that is to reduce recurring incidents over time. This next slide represents the type of requests we are receiving. Requests are a little different than incidents. Requests are considered a request for information or service. And when you think about an incident, it's an unplanned interruption in IT services. As you see, the highest number of requested tickets are related to access issues. This next slide captures our key outage data. In calendar year 2021, we experienced 53 outages, totaling approximately 1,000 hours. As you'll see, in October, we had a large spike due to third-party vendors. We're in the process of establishing monthly performance reviews with our vendors to ensure that their performance align with the services captured in the contracts with the city. And we also plan to revisit our SLAs to make sure that they're sufficient. Additionally, we are enhancing our monitoring capabilities to gather metrics based on industry standards. This slide represents the total number and health of projects we are managing across the city. We measure health of a project based on schedule, which includes scope and budget and resources. We have a total of 114 active projects, of which 106 are controlled, 5 are in caution, and 3 are in a critical status. This next slide captures the total amount of projects that were opened and closed in calendar year 2021 and the number of projects opened and closed through February of this year. As you'll see, we opened a total of 90 projects and closed a total of 76 in 2021. And January through February of this year, we opened 18 and closed 14. Ames' operational strategy consists of 5 pillars, which we refer to as Operation Excellence. Pillar 1, strengthening our core, which focuses on delivering reliable, cost-effective, and secure IT services for the city. Pillar 2, increasing alignment, which focuses on delivering services by improving trust and engagement throughout the city. Pillar 3, innovate and accelerate, which focuses on enhancing the end-user experience by delivering efficient, timely, and innovative IT services. Pillar 4, focusing on modernizing, investing, and where applicable, retiring redundant applications. And Pillar 5, which is a new pillar, workforce planning, which focuses on investing in our most important asset, which is our people. This includes succession planning, employee development, training, position management, etc. It is the goal of AIM to become a true business partner. Right now, we are stuck in what's considered more of a firefighter mentality, which will not advance the city's technology requirements. This current status is due to competing priorities, lack of prioritization and governance, historical misalignment of strategy, and ongoing resource challenges. However, with the Operation Excellence strategy previously mentioned, we have a plan to become that trusted business partner. One area we identified in mid-fiscal year 2022 is to address the challenges of actually meeting the needs of our customers and community through a business relationship management discipline, or a BRM model. We now have aligned each department with the appropriate AIM support, identifying BRMs to oversee those customers we did not previously provide that level of support for. This BRM role provides technical expertise, strategy, portfolio management, and really acts as a bridge in developing a partnership between AIM and citywide departments. And the goal is to ultimately align the business strategy with the IT strategy, building a holistic roadmap throughout the organization. Another area we are developing is our commitment to build a smart city. a data-driven enterprise where we utilize data to drive outcomes, and really leaning into what's called user-centered design and development, where we build technology solutions based on the experience of the customers actually utilizing our technology. To execute our operational strategy, we recently implemented a process to manage demand, capacity, and forecasting by looking at priorities for the city's technology needs. And we are measuring demand capability by looking across 8 strategic drivers. These include technology necessity, mayoral and departmental strategy, regulatory or mandatory requirements, the impact to the city, project management readiness, organizational need, technology readiness, and citizen impact. Lastly, we have categorized our ongoing and upcoming initiatives and aligned them to our strategic pillars. We then overlaid our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, or our SWOT analysis, and incorporated the level of effort versus impact to the organization and community. In the interest of time, I won't go over the next 3 slides, which covers our ongoing and upcoming initiatives, but I would welcome the opportunity to take a deeper dive in the future to go over these initiatives. With that, I would like to thank you again for the opportunity to present today, and I will answer any questions you may have.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Sankey. Questions or comments from my colleagues? Mr. Dozier.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Sankey, thank you so much for joining us today. I will say from one Jason to another, it's good to have you before us. And I think I can speak on behalf of my colleague, Jason Winston. I will say Jasons are having our moment here in the city of Atlanta, so it's good to have you here today. I do have a question with, I think your role within the city of Atlanta is unique in that, we did experience a cyber attack a couple of years ago, and, things that are happening internationally impact what we do in the city. And with the war in Ukraine, I imagine with the heightened alertness around cybersecurity attacks all over the globe, not only in countries in Eastern Europe, but even here locally, I imagine with our resource with the airport, the city of Atlanta is going to have to look at it a little bit differently than maybe Baltimore or Milwaukee. I was just curious if you could talk through some of the steps or the measures taken to address that or be proactive about our cybersecurity posture, considering we've been a victim of a major cyber attack. I don't know if there's any redundancies in place to protect our data, protect our information. If things go down, we still have our records. I know that was an issue last time, but if you could just talk through some of that, I would love. I'm the new guy, so I would love to learn more about what we're doing in regards to that.
Sure. Thank you, Council Member. I would be happy to schedule some one-on-one time and we can take a deeper dive. Just because it's cybersecurity, I don't want to go too deep in a public setting, but what I will say is we partner with our community, so we are engaged with the federal organizations to make sure that we're taking a proactive approach holistically. As a city the size and complexity of the city of Atlanta, to your point, we need to be proactive. But also awareness is key. So one of our areas that we have to make sure that we're very mindful of is the employee and the usage of email and clicking on attachments and clicking on embedded files and links. So we really have been promoting the importance of making sure that we train our employees, because that, believe it or not, is still throughout the country one of the most vulnerable points. So if someone were to click on, an attachment or a link, they open up the city for a vulnerability. So it's really education on the employee side. But then on the technology side, we have multiple layers. Like I said, we can go into detail on a one-on-one. I'd be happy to have that discussion.
All right, any other questions or comments? I have a couple if my colleagues don't have one. One is around the annual budget. I mean, I guess I was quite surprised to see the numbers trending downward instead of the other way upward, given the importance of this functionality and also the experience from, I guess that was 2019, or I think when the cyber attack was going on. I feel like we would be trying to invest even more in shoring up our systems. We're at $30.8 million right now. Where do you think your ideal level would be, and I also don't want to jeopardize any sort of, I'm sure you're in the middle of developing the budget with the administration now, but, give us an idea of where ideally we should be.
We've had these conversations, collaborative conversations with finance, and we're roughly, I would say, about $10 million short of where we were budgeted in FY22. So we are talking through some strategies on how we can align to that, knowing that overall as a city that there are caps, so there has to be some compromises. But I think from a technology perspective, to your point, we have historically made compromises where, in my opinion, my professional opinion, we can't or shouldn't, because we should be leaning into and investing in technology.
Okay, I'm going to just leave that at that for now. I also did want to talk about the FY22 budget to date and the notion around the overage and expenditures being around, I think you said cellular, and you described, I can't remember the term you used.
Cellular, data, network, and cloud.
Okay. Are those costs not allocated to departments that use them? I mean, is this just different from allocatable costs?
This is a little different when we talk about network, because we're talking about citywide network.
Gotcha.
But at the beginning of the budget planning season for FY22, it was known that we were going in with a shortage. So this isn't a surprise to Ames, nor is it to finance.
Okay. The other just general, I want to do the incident management. When you say access or application issues being kind of the highest quantity, what is the typical instance, and what is the typical resolution? Is it a lot of times user error, or is it actual system error or application crash or default?
It's typically access to the system, so it could be a combination of user, also an actual system issue, which is why we're adding that extra layer of problem management, because we really want to reduce these repeat incidents from coming up. So if there is an access issue, why do we have an access issue? Can we have more self-service solutions where we don't have to actually open up a ticket?
And my final question for you is, I remember the last time my previous tour of duty, one of the conversations we were having with Ames was around disaster recovery. And at this point, fast forward 4 years, what grade would you give us in terms of our preparedness with disaster recovery?
I would say if we are grading from a scale A to F, I would say we're a B right now.
Okay.
But by 6:30, I'm looking more in the A range. We have a project right now that will be implemented June 30th, where we're going to have full redundancy testing, tabletop exercises, everything that would make sure that we're prepared in the event of a disaster, and on top of that, looking at business continuity and making sure that the businesses are ready as well.
Okay, that's encouraging. I appreciate that. Any other questions from my colleagues? All right, thank you, Mr. Sankey. Appreciate the information, and we'll see you next quarter.
Thank you.
All right, next up is Department of Procurement, Mr. Clerk.
I'll get started while the presentation comes up. Greetings and good afternoon, Chair Wan and members of the committee. And thank you for the opportunity to update you on the quarterly activities and to briefly discuss some of the mitigation controls at the Department of Procurement. Next slide. Here we go. Let's get right into the spend. The largest amount of spend was in the services desk, where we had over $424 million spend versus $29 million in commodities. Of the three silos, small purchasing had the smallest spend at $7.7 million, but was, as usual, took up the bulk of the number of purchase orders at 3,148. along with 213 purchase orders in commodities and 353 in services. Quarter over quarter, committee members, we were up $38 million in services spend. We were up $9 million in commodities, and we were slightly down in small purchases by $25,000. We also wanted to give a feel for some of the contracts awarded in the quarter, including permeable pavers contract, forestry services, quality control improvement, and support for our municipal water collection services. More representative deals included citywide managing general contractors, Broad Street pedestrian plaza contract. Let's go on. The city over the last few years really worked on mitigation of problems it had in the past as far as processes, committee members. The Department of Procurement is subject to the review of numerous agencies, including the Inspector General's Office, the Chief Transparency Officer, Audit, Ethics, the Independent Compliance Office, and of course IPRO, the Independent Procurement Review Office. We are very thankful for the efforts these agencies have taken to improve our processes. DOP actually took a counterintuitive approach, committee members, in that we really saw them as tools to help us improve our functions and our operations, and that partnership has been very, very effective. The IPRO team has been incredibly helpful. That process of going through our solicitations to check for process adherence was absolutely critical to us, because we've taken those results and we brought them back to our team to analyze our operations and improve them. We got better because of the scrutiny. Law, audit, compliance, the transparency officer, all of their work got us to a place where we are completing our contracts faster than we ever have, and certainly with fewer mistakes than we ever did. I have to thank the ethics office also, for example, curating training for our folks. It's been a very, very fantastic experience. We're also subject to very low dollar caps on our purchases. Committee members, when people come in from the outside, from the private sector or from other governments, and they see that we have $5,000 micro purchase caps, $20,000 small purchase caps, and even $100,000 cap on the deals that the CPO can sign, they're sort of shocked because by comparison, other jurisdictions and certainly the private sector have much, much higher limits. But again, by doing so, you potentially limit the exposure to the city. Now, we also did some groundbreaking stuff internally as well. We had the first ever digital portal for the public to view contracts and access to that information online. We had, nothing to hide, so we started digitizing our contracts and putting it online. We are continuing to do that. We also did it in a budget neutral fashion with Socrata. We also did the first ever Smart Report, which was an electronic monitoring dashboard that was created in-house to monitor the progression of our solicitations. And that was done with the assistance of our Innovation Resource Director, a new position we created at the Department of Procurement. SMART, by the way, stands for Solicitation Monitoring and Reporting Tool. And it let us know where in the bid process we were at all times. I asked the team to look at every touch point in the procurement process and see how we can improve and speed up the process. We got reasonable SLAs from the agencies with reasonable SLAs that they could hit to allow us to improve the steps. It's been very effective. The city previously took steps to centralize operations, committee members, bringing purchasing back from the agencies and back to procurement. No more field POs, limited use of P cards. We digitized the bidding process with the ATL Cloud, our Oracle-based platform, for completing procurements. We have electronic submissions now so that we know what was uploaded and exactly when it was uploaded. Despite the electronic controls, we also did in-house fixes that one wouldn't necessarily think of as important for mitigation controls. An example would be committee members' instructions. We took a deep look at the instructions that we were handing out with the solicitations, and some of the instructions and questions the questions were unnecessary or could be seen as confusing. And why is that important? Because in theory, you can control the outcome of bids if you make instructions so confusing that only a select few people know how to get through that process. So we made it easier. We even did a top 10 list of reasons why bids get found non-responsive and handed those out to help people get through the process. You know, no one had ever bothered to really sort of list these things to be careful of it, and it worked. We had less non-responsive findings. Another mitigation control was the SOP. So the last SOP was done in 2014, committee members. We had disparate advice coming from different managers in the department, so to get people literally on the same page, we created the first ever digital SOP with hyperlinks to the latest code provisions and forms. We hired an outside consultant, got law to review it, and signed off and drafted it. We took it one step further by creating the first ever formal contract manager training program, which was a 22-hour course for our folks to be literally back on the same page. We didn't want disparate advice, which could be cherry-picked to sway outcomes, so we put everybody, again, literally back on the same page. We tried to fight decentralization. We also engaged affidavits and conflict of interest documents, annual disclosures through, of course, ethics. So we also used Oracle to lock the solicitations to access to only the assigned contract specialists to limit the number of hands in the process. Another area of sensitivity was our spending. We wanted to morph our staff into strategic advisors and analysts to help clients with their purchasing needs, what to buy, when to buy, and how to leverage spend to drive down savings. But our data was really limited. What we found was with over 5,000 NIGP codes to choose from when coding the spend, people would get flustered, so we carved it down to the 400 most used codes and trained folks how to be more exact in the process. This netted better spend data. Speaking of spend, we got kind of frustrated in DOP previously when we would get these solicitations to the finish line and the solicitation would stall while we waited for funds at the legislation phase. So we worked with finance, and I believe you all saw the memo where we required the earmarks. We also added the IRS TIN matching when we onboard folks that register with the City of Atlanta. We stopped mailing paper checks, moved away from the paper process to a more transparent electronic process, and transitioned thousands of businesses to the electronic payment process. A very valuable process that we incorporated, of course, is our weekly meeting with the iPro team and going over findings and contracts with them to improve our process. We are also looking forward to the upcoming cost and spend analysis solicitation. That software, we will likely get a much more granular feel for what we spend our money on, when we spend it, and how much we should be spending, committee members. We did a lot, but with all these speed stops, did it slow down the process? No. The opposite. Another mitigation effort involved our attempt to move away from alternative procurements. Alternative procurements, committee members, are those that either have less competition or no competitions. Things like emergency procurements, sole sources, special procurements, those types. So in 2016, we had 33 sole sources. Last year, we had 6. We had 132 special procurements in 2016, and in 2021, we had 22. And now in 2016, we had 59 emergency procurements, and last year, 24. The year before that, in the pandemic, we had 65 for obvious reasons. But what about the process? People always look at 2-1192 in our code regarding emergencies, but we also have to make reference to 2-1214 that covers the nuances of disclosures related to the emergency contracts. We have more restrictions on that process, including having to first see if there are current contracts that could accomplish the immediate need, and also in engaging in as much competition as is practicable. In short, we have incorporated a lot of changes, committee members, at the department, and that hasn't decreased the amount of time it takes to complete the solicitations, and we certainly have much more scrutiny now than we have, ever have. The Jason before me was smart enough to bring some water. I got to remember that, Jason. And that is my presentation. I'm going to cut it off there. I am available for any questions.
All right, thank you. Questions from my colleagues. Mr. Dozier.
Thank you so much for your presentation, Mr. Clark. My question is not directly related to the presentation, but just recognizing that Open Checkbook has been in the news media for the last couple of days. AJC published a story, I think, 2 days ago or 3 days ago, and I know they had noted in the story that even though there were some issues with some updates to the portal, those changes have been made to keep things up to date. But I'm curious if you could talk through kind of where things, why there were some issues with getting that updated as frequently as the public would like it to be updated, and what can we expect going forward?
Sure, and I'll invite my Innovation Resource Director up as well, but in short, I believe it was a matter of just update and data input, if I'm not mistaken. It's absolutely been, I believe, a great resource for the public, but again, in keeping things up to date, that I believe was the issue, Chairperson Dozier.
Honestly, it just kind of slipped through the cracks of things. We did the initial upload, and then it took longer. I think we ended up going 6 months without updating it, but I have since then implemented a process. So the purchase order data is going to get updated every 30 days now, and then contracts every 3 months, so 90 days. So I have an actual data management process that we've implemented to make sure that does not happen again.
Yeah, and thank you for that, Councilmember. Just so I can add to Mohammed Ball, Department of Finance, should be noted for the record that the expense data on a monthly basis has always been up to date, as well as the credit card expenses for employees. Those 2 items have been maintained and have been up to date continuously. We're working with the Department of Procurement to set up a cadence to make sure that there's a monthly touch base to assure that any uploads to the system are continuously done. There are some limitations right now with regards to automation, so we need manual pulls and dumps of the data, but we'll coordinate with the Department of Procurement to make sure that any data uploads are done routinely and continuously.
Thank you. And this might be a little bit of a technical question, but how long does that upload process typically take per upload? Is that a multi-day type thing, or is that
No, it's not. It's usually, I believe, within an hour or so once we extract the file, but we do it on a monthly basis after the financials close for the month.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I want to acknowledge that we've been joined by Councilmember Michael Julian Bond. Other questions? Mr. Hill has had some questions.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Clark. My question is, when you do individual procurements, and I'll use one that I'm familiar with because it has affected my district and other districts, but an ATL DOT procurement that has, it's the phase one of the unpaved streets has been, from what I'm told, to procurement 3 times, or is going to be coming to procurement for the 3rd time due to different issues with each one. So before you get into specifics of that, I don't know if you have that fresh on your mind right now, but how do you all look to improve at each time there's an issue with a procurement? How do y'all review that and move forward with?
No, that's an excellent question. And I welcome that question, because, again, that's exactly why we had all these process changes, Councilman Hillis. I mean, if you recall, and some of the members that were here in the previous administration, we used to always have these non-responses because of the IREA forms not being filled out correctly, and other items that were really not necessarily the substantive, hard reasons for knocking these things out. So again, that's why we went through, literally going through these things to see what do we actually need. Now, of course, there are other reasons for why folks are found non-responsive. For instance, not conforming to the good faith efforts of our EBO programs, for instance. But we always look at these things, and we actually do post solicitations, inquiries with the bidders to see some of the problems or get a sense of what may have been challenges, Councilman Hillis, to improve the process. I can't speak to that specific one because that actually, I believe, is coming around again. But as a general matter, we try to get as much intel on those items that may have not been as successful, or even, for instance, Councilman Hillis, if we go to the street and we get very, very minimal interest, we'll poll and try to reach out to the folks that had actually requested the books and the solicitations to see, well, why didn't you bid? So those are some of the things that we've tried to do to improve our operations.
All right, thank you for that. And my final question is, also I'm kind of referencing an active matter, so I won't get into specifics of that, but when you have a contractor that the city has issues with, or they act in bad faith, who's the onus on to ensure that, I believe we have call it a contractor report card or something like that?
Sure.
So what role does your department play versus the subject department of the procurement, like ATO, DOT, or DEEM, or something like that, play in making sure that whatever issues we had with that contractor are on that record?
Yeah, so again, we of course are charged with the procurement of goods and services, but absolutely, even after that, the user agencies, of course, will be the ones that are tasked with the execution of the agreement. But in the process, if there are any issues, the user agency has the ability to reach out to the Office of Contract Compliance or Procurement if there's any basis for disbarment, suspension, or any other issues or problems with that process, which we will, investigate and execute. But primarily, we rely on the user agencies that are interacting with these folks day to day to report any issues. But as we go forward, we are discussing, I guess, in some cases, a little bit deeper dive into that process. And I know that, for instance, Watershed, I think prior to even doing or approving new task orders, they'll take a look at whether or not, the vendors had passed their report card on previous task orders. So we are definitely looking at performance components, Councilman.
All right, thank you. And I'll reach out to you and the user department for the one that's on my mind today for more details.
Much appreciated.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hillis. Mr. Winston, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the presentation, Mr. Clark. I know that the City of Atlanta traditionally, with the Department of Transportation, it takes a long time to award bids, for contracts that are out. And I've had conversations with the Transportation Department about various projects throughout the City of Atlanta where bids have been awarded, but it has taken a long time to kind of finalize that. And now we've seen where contractors are for lack of better words, trying to renege on the contracts that they are obligated to, where we're in a precarious situation where we may have to send, some of these projects back out to bid. But, now we're looking at delaying projects that are desperately needed, for another year or so. Are we doing anything to kind of work with Atlanta Transportation to make sure that we can expedite some of these projects where we're seeing contractors wanting to see, higher prices due to inflation over the year?
Sure, great question, but I also have to incorporate two parts to that answer. Yes, on the back end and on completing the process of negotiations and completion and execution of the contract, we've tried to speed that process up through the SMART report and the SLAs. But prior to even that, Councilman Winston, remember, procurement actually is responsive to the needs of the user agencies. So the trigger packages which we get from the user agencies have to be accurate. The more accurate, the better the solicitation, because it's got to be in the ask. And to that end, we are actually going to be incorporating a position to help the user agencies create better trigger packages, Councilperson Winston. So that hopefully will help cut the processing time, because, rather than going back and forth with faulty or inadequate trigger packages, we want to have, spend the time up front so that's a solid trigger package so we know exactly what they need. So that's on the front end. Then on the back end, once that contract is awarded and they know that they've got that contract, it's really critical, I believe, that the vendors work with the city in completing the contract negotiations. Because oftentimes, Councilperson Winston, they'll agree to these things up on the front, but on the back end, all of a sudden, they'll try to flip the script. And so, that process has to be ironed out, and sometimes it's not a quick process. But again, it's absolutely critical and mission critical that, folks agree to execute a contract that reflects the scope of services that they agreed to. And sometimes they try not to. So again, we are trying to stick with those SLAs. But again, it's not necessarily always the easiest process, sir.
Other questions from my colleagues? I want to kind of piggyback and jump on that piece as well. When that happens, though, that a contractor, understanding fully the scope of work that's outlined in an RFP, bids, gets evaluated, gets selected, and then you're in contracting phase, if they start wiggling then, and don't we still have somewhat of, I don't want to say, we're negotiating from a position of bit more strength, because in theory we have a second contractor that we could go to.
Indeed.
And I mean, couldn't, I feel like we've got enough arrows in the quiver to shorten that or kind of nip that in the bud to keep these critical projects moving along.
Indeed. But again, somewhat of a, I guess, complication, but you're absolutely right. That's always a negotiating item that the lawyers can take in negotiation process. But again, remember that awardee is the awardee because they met the criteria, and the scoring process named them the best possible vendor. So again, we try to complete it. But again, Chairperson Juan, that has happened where we've had to say, no way, we're not going to make that change because it was part of the solicitation scope of work.
I mean, as you know, you and I have had conversations. There's an active procurement in my district that I'm following closely.
You know better than anyone.
Yeah, and so it's kind of one of those things, though. To other council members' points, is that we feel the urgency of these, and I would want us to use every single faculty that we have available to be able to expedite this. Going kind of moving from that, I mean, I appreciate the performance metrics that you've shared with us, and I do think they tell a good story in terms of how your office and the efforts of the previous council in terms of tightening up procurement has helped. On the flip side, though, they could tell another narrative. They could say, you've done all this, but you basically have cut all sorts of viable and ethical and solidly reasonable avenues, and we've now gummed up the system. And so I'm curious as to how you make that balance, because that famous saying, perfect is the enemy of good.
Right.
I mean, if we're striving for perfect, we got to remember we still have to be able to deliver for our city.
No, but that actually is what the beauty of what's been sort of taking place at procurement. So, again, I really emphasize that SMART report because, again, we really started to focus in on just the touch points. And in fact, we split it up into 5 phases, but there were really 22 potential and that's 2.0. But again, trying to hold people's feet to the fire on the SLAs has been really critical, Chairperson Juan. And to sort of make it more granular, because I keep going back to the SMART report, what it does is it lets us know in a visual way whether or not we're literally in the red or green, if we're falling behind in the first part or if we're starting to fall down in the third part. We're able to toggle that to say, look, your contract's in the red, to hold our folks, feet to the fire to get these things done. And, we're operating faster now than I think we ever have. So yes, we are, under more scrutiny than ever. We are operating with more dashboards than I think we ever have. But the beauty of that is utilizing the technology to increase our efficiencies, to push these things out faster, which I'm super excited because the next phase will eventually be our cost and spend analysis that's going to even make it more granular for us to drive down savings, and so we'll be of more utility to the city. So I'm super excited about that.
My final question is, you talked about dashboards. This services solicitation cycle page that shows a very dramatic decrease in the number. I'm assuming that's a number of days between when the RFP is let and when we actually execute the contract. I feel like there are multiple components of that. There is the time for responses, there's the evaluation period, then there's kind of the negotiation, contract signing. Where has the bulk of that, the reduction come from? And then finally, to this last conversation we've been having, has the contracting piece of it, has that still remained stubbornly where it's at, or is there room to squeeze that down as well?
Now, we looked at all 5 phases, and so this is the result of cutting down portions here, here, and here. I mean, it's again, by breaking it into 5 distinct SLAs, we were able to drive down the numbers. But, it also is a function of management. The contract managers and the deputies, just sort of keeping an eye on the files closer and then utilizing the dashboard to true up every week. So I can't say that it's on any one portion. I mean, certainly at the back end, we'd love to sort of close it out quicker, but again, it's sort of we're subject to the vendors pushing back. On the front end, the reason why we're bringing in a position to help with the trigger packages is to save time there so we don't go back and forth. So again, all these little efforts have been very, very effective in trying to drive the total time down, councilperson.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Any other questions from my colleagues for Mr. Clark in his presentation? All right, seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, colleagues, let's move on to the next presentation, which is from the Department of Customer Service. Aisha Good's going to deliver our quarterly update.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
It's good to see you all in person. So, greetings, members of City Council and Chairman Wan. I'm Maisha Good. I serve as the interim commissioner of the Department of Customer Service where ATL 311 lies. As a reminder, we are open Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. We serve as the non-emergency services and information channel for the city. There are numerous ways to contact us, but most people call us by phone. So we have about 80% of our calls, our cases are submitted by phone. But you can reach out to us via social media, mostly Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, at ATL 311. You can fax us. You can also go to our portal, which is 24 hours a day at atl311.com. Currently, we are funded 117 positions, and we have about 28 vacancies, and those vacancies span across the entire department, not just the call center. For some operational improvements that we've done this year and what we're moving towards next fiscal year, one, the customer experience. So we've mapped out the customer journey so we can identify system touch points via the different channels that customers can get service through. So that's all the channels I just named. And so currently what we're doing is I've heard from some of you, and I know you wanted our IVR to be optimized. So we're working very closely with Ames to optimize it, make it seamless, make it more accessible, and also navigate to the right service. So we hope to have that up fairly soon because we know how important it is for the customer. But the goal is for the customer to be able to check their status of a case. So they don't have to wait, right? Because our hold times are still fairly long. We're not an hour anymore, but we've gone down to 10 minutes. So with as we continue to onboard new hires, we found that has been very helpful to us. So the plan is to integrate our IVR into the CRM. Next, operational efficiency. So we're looking at ways to improve processes that impacts the customer experience, such as technology, right? So I've spoken to many of you here, and as you are aware, we are in need of a new CRM, or the current CRM has to be enhanced. So we've been working with Ames. We've done some discovery meetings with some vendors. So hopefully we can have a decision fairly soon on whether we will enhance the CRM or we will get a new CRM. So we're working very closely with Ames and the mayor's office. So what we decided to do is create dedicated teams to each service area. So starting tomorrow, and we pilot this already for watershed management, but starting tomorrow, our goal is to have a dedicated team set for watershed management calls only. We want to be able to have our team members have a one-call resolution, if possible, on many of our services. So we feel the best way to do that is to have dedicated teams. These teams, unless it's an emergency for another service area, will solely be dedicated to DWM, and then down the road, we're looking at doing the same thing for our other top call drivers in the city. Also, the mobile app. So we've been speaking to, we actually put out an RFP, and we did receive some proposals. So we're at the last stretch of it. So hopefully we could get someone onboarded, but of course we got to go through procurement. We have to go through legislation because it's looking like it would be over $100,000. But the overall goal is to just revamp that mobile app, integrate it into the CRM, and this, of course, is another avenue for your constituents to submit cases. Effective management, we know we have to ensure that our management is also at a level to be better leaders. So we've brought in DHR, and we've started, we are in our third week of leadership development training for our management and senior team. So far that has been going very well. Also, we've implemented a career development because we want to know our staff. We want to know their strengths, their weaknesses, and just sort of match their skill set with some things that they want to do in the department or maybe outside of the department. Sorry, getting tongue twisted. But this will also help develop them even further. So we started that. And then lastly, workforce management. We created dedicated queues, as I mentioned, but this will also allow us to have better forecasting and better understanding of our call volume. And so, but in addition to that, we want to award our staff. We want to measure their success and have them feel better about the job that they do. So currently, we are doing very well in building morale and keeping it high. So I'm excited about the work that we've done here. Next slide is the call volume and where we are today. So from July 2021 to last month, our call volume has been like a little roller coaster. So July 2021, we saw a high call volume of over 55,000. But pre-pandemic, we were averaging 30,000 calls a month. So even as you can see of last month, we were at 43,000 calls. So we are level setting, we are continually onboarding because we understand that we need more than the 48 agents we currently have, but we also have a new hire class that started last week, so hopefully we can get them onboarded in a few weeks to be on the floor. But we also noticed attrition started right around that July 2021 time, and we're still going through attrition as well. For our supportive services team, we take calls for policing alternatives and diversion initiatives. As you all know, those calls are received from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Currently, that team take calls for issues around substance use, basic needs, someone may need a shelter, public health concerns. So there may be concerns for someone that may be eating out of a dumpster. So we have the ability to dispatch a PAD person out there to help this person, right? And so I know there's been some discussions and a request from all of you for that to be 24 hours. So we are in communications with PAD, and hopefully we can get that lunch fairly soon. There are a number of things we have to do, though. One is technology. Also, PAD is, looking at ways of placing them overnight, right, in housing. And also looking at the safety of the dispatchers as well. Our top five cases of fiscal year 22. And here we have covered different areas. All departments are not listed, but these are our top call drivers for fiscal year 22. So watershed management, their top call was property owner or renter request to establish new water and sewer bill account services. And DPW, their top was bulk collection request. Municipal court, when is my court date and time? Code enforcement, top two, because they're sort of neck and neck, was junk trash, debris on private property, and overgrown grass. For finance, business license renewal season, right? And we're still in the middle of that, so that has been extended to May 1st. And lastly, for PAD, their top calls was Atlanta Police emergency and non-emergency contact information. Everbridge, as some of you know, we do send out messages across the city for departments. Typically, it's around severe weather. It could be about DPW collection, and also book pickup reminders. So we are continually sending that out on behalf of departments. For fiscal year 22, we've sent out over 615 campaigns. We have over 25,000 subscribers, and it's still growing today. And for the COVID-19 efforts, we were able to have over 16,000 customers opt in to receive notifications. Our social media team is very busy as well, so they've received so far, I'm sure this is over in the 15,000s by now, but when we last looked, it was at 14,687. And so most of our volume comes through those three drivers I mentioned earlier, which was Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We do have other areas in which we do receive messages and concerns through, and those are, See, Click, Fix, and Nextdoor, and Reddit. So please share that with your constituents as well, because we are consistently in those outlets. And that concludes my report. Any questions?
Sure. All right. Good to see you in person, Commissioner Good. I know we've had a couple of meetings over Zoom and Teams, and it's nice to get these sorts of presentations. I had just a few questions. The first one is with regards to the 311 app. And what's the status on that? When can we expect
the mobile app? So
yes.
We're in the process of speaking with vendors. We're actually receiving RFPs. So hopefully by next week we will have a vendor that is a SME in our current CRM, which is ServiceNow. So once that person is selected, of course, they go through the procurement process. We had to take it through legislation, and they would probably start July 1st, new fiscal year. And we've been told it would take 16 to 18 weeks to implement.
Okay, thank you. And then my other question is with regards to Notify ATL. I'm curious about the notification criteria that is being used to let the people know what's going on. I know in the past I've seen everything from freeze warnings to high wind advisories to the Super Bowl is in town and come on out to an event. And it seems, at least from my perspective, a little inconsistent, historically, because I know a lot of these things have happened before you came on board. And just want to know if you could talk through kind of the criteria that you all use before an alert is sent out. I think about, especially when we've had cold weather and we've had warming shelters open, I imagine that would be a great opportunity to share that with the public, since a lot of our unhoused population, they may have mobile phones, but don't necessarily have access to Twitter and Facebook. And just kind of want to see, what internally your office is doing to determine when to send out an alert.
Yes, so those requests are driven by departments, right? And they're also driven by the Mayor's Office of Emergency Preparedness. So we support those areas. Typically, we do have guidance that we follow. But a lot of times, if you don't see messages going out, or if they're pretty redundant, it's because of a directive we receive. However, we do understand that information overload happens, and some people are like, I'm tired of this. It's almost like a robocall, right? So we've noticed that, and we've sort of been directed or directing departments to sort of, slow down just a little bit, or target who you need to send it to. But again, we support the departments, and that's why you're seeing those messages go out like that.
Thank you. And my last thing is more of a comment. I just want to say your office has just been phenomenally helpful for my office in terms of the information that you've shared with regards to 311 submissions over the last year and a half. And just for my colleagues' awareness, what we're doing with that data, we are mapping it, based on 311 request type, just so to see use it as a way to see where our problem areas are, so we can, as we have discretionary funding opportunities, as we have opportunities to divert resources, we can make sure we can get those resources where people need help the most. I know the city's doing that through this 311 process, but we're looking to see where our office can support that as well. So just appreciate you for being so open about that information.
That's awesome. I'm happy to hear that, and you're more than welcome.
Thank you. I yield my time.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Commissioner Good, for coming out for the presentation and the update. Just want to first commend you and your team on the great work you've been doing in responsiveness to getting back, especially as it pertains to social media. I get tagged in a lot of those on social media, so I see the responses, and you all have been doing a good job. But I do want to just kind of dive into a little bit about the need for a new CRM. The former lecturer in me for the public customer relationship management system feels the need to spell that out for everyone. But you talked about doing some upgrades to the existing system, while also the need for needing a new system. So what's the how are we going to expedite getting this new system that's desperately needed, while you all are doing a lot of this work with one hand tied behind your back, while also looking at options to upgrade the existing system.
Yeah, so the upgrades we're doing to the CRM, the current CRM, is mostly around manual processes, which is slowing down the handle time for the agent. So as we're still progressing forward with AIM, with finding a possible new vendor or enhancing what we have, right? We know that in order to make the job easier for our agents and make that call time better for our customer, we have to implement automated processes. So that's what we're doing with the current. And those requirements have been in place for some time. So we're not going to do nothing too major, right? Because we don't want to put so much money into something that could possibly be non-existent soon. So we're doing it hand in hand, but not a lot of major effort and money will go into the current CRM until we know for sure the direction we're going to go.
And do you have a timeline or an internal timeline to decide when you want to select a new system?
I can say that we are working very closely with the mayor's office and AIM, and we know that this is a priority for the mayor.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you, Mr. Winston. Actually, we're going to move to Mr. Bond first and then Mr. Hillis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Commissioner Good, for your very able presentation and the service that you've always provided to the City of Atlanta. I have a question on the customer management system. Do you all track, I know you track the complaints that come in, but do you all have a system similar to the police when they look at the data on a weekly basis to see where the complaints are coming in? Can you elaborate on that?
Yes, we do. So the data that we all share with you all, we set up a SharePoint for you all, you and your teams. So that data shows how each of your council district look, what's like the number one call for your areas. Also, we look at that area to see trends, right? And our team, we have a team of portfolio managers that meet monthly or as needed, sometimes every week, depending on the department, of that data and what we're seeing. And this sort of gives some type of guidance on what we're hearing. So we do have data that we consistently look at weekly. We have a strong data team that also delivers data to departments as well to keep them in the loop of what's happening.
Do you have the ability, I guess, over time to track to see how effective the departments have been at addressing some of those trends?
We could do it by service type. We can, yes. So we can look at, like for instance, per month, and I'm just throwing out a department, let's say solid waste, right? We could look at public works and see per quarter or per month, what are their top call drivers, and sort of talk to them or show them what we're receiving in our customer service surveys as well, right? And what we're hearing at MPU meetings. So we do have that ability to do that.
When you report to us next, can you give us some slides that would demonstrate that?
Okay, will do.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
I withdraw, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Bond. Mr. Hillis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'm sure you knew I was going to ask about the app, but Councilmember Dozier took my question. So I heard the feedback you gave to him, but I still, as I've expressed before, I would really like to try to speed that up because it sounds like the procurement wouldn't go out until, I believe you said July, and then we've got 4 to 5 more months until the rollout.
Well, we hope to have the procurement done before July so we could start July 1 with the vendor. And then from that point on, it would be 16 to 18 weeks.
Yeah, so another 4 months before the public would have an app. So as, I've shared with you, but I'll share with, my fellow committee members, or these committee members, committee that I'm not on, but, I'd use that app very, very actively. When I was out in the district to log complaints, I talked about it at MPUs and neighborhood meetings, and it was very helpful. So I'm looking forward to getting that back up and running for the public. So please keep us updated on that.
It sure will, and we feel the same way. So we would do our very best to get it implemented as soon as possible.
And the next question is, and I'm not picking on your department, I've asked this of other departments that have presented. In the past month or two, the presentations that I've seen from multiple departments, only one of them has given us what I call, what I would say are true performance metrics. So I'd like to see some performance metrics around, your call times, the call handling times once that call is picked up, because, they may not look good, but I'm sure that's shared throughout multiple departments given where we're at. So, but the committee members and, the other committee members need to know, where the issues are, so we can start thinking about resources, budget time and all that. So I'd be very appreciative if not just your department, but all departments would provide more performance metrics in their quarterly presentations.
Okay.
And then you mentioned the customer service surveys. Is there kind of a mini presentation you could prepare for us and send it out to council members, maybe quarterly or something like that, just to also see what the public is saying about their 311 experience?
Okay, we will.
And then lastly, what is and I'm sure it fluctuates drastically, but what is the current, average hold time right now at 311?
It's about 10 minutes right now. And that's because we've been onboarding, every single month, and, because we have to be fully staffed to be effective. So, and we put in some other measures around the queue times that we established where it's dedicated queues. So with that, and just really developing our teams, our leadership teams, that has been a big help for us.
And just to follow up to that, and something you mentioned is you dedicating a team to Watershed, and I don't know if that's the goal to have dedicated teams for different departments, but has it been looked at? Is that going to negatively affect, the already long call handling times we have right now?
No, after looking, because we did a pilot and we noticed it was actually better, right? And so our goal is to start with Watershed and then go to the next big call driver and then keep it going. So we know at least 5 to 6 departments have the most volume of calls. So that is the ultimate goal, to have queues established for each of those call drivers.
And then the last question I have is something I believe I've brought to 301's attention before, but with the new system, and also when I have called in before, neither the email that you get after you file a complaint or I couldn't get it out of the call taker what the SLA was for a complaint. So when I called in, it was for a missing stop sign or something like that, or a street sign, and I couldn't get an SLA. Nor when you go in and use the new system, does that initial email you get back give you an SLA time as to what to expect.
Yep, and that's one of the requirements of this new CRM. So that SLA will be embedded into what you submit online or in the portal. Now, if an agent is not sharing the SLA, they should. So that is something that we need to know, because typically in the knowledge articles that we have that is supported by the department, because they help write those for us, they establish an SLA for each of those. So if that happens, please let me know.
I'll go undercover again soon, and see if I get an SLA time. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good.
All right, any other questions for Ms. Good? Thank you very much for your presentation. We appreciate the work and look forward to the next report.
Thank you.
All right, next up is the Open Records Compliance Act quarterly update. As Ms. Denius is coming up, I have a flight I have to go catch, so I'm going to turn the steering wheel over to Vice Chair Shook. Good luck with him.
Good afternoon. My name is Kristen Denius. I am the Chief Transparency Officer. I have a very brief update, and I will explain as I do my update why my next one might be longer. I'm kind of excited about that. I'm sorry to have run off the chair. So the first thing I wanted to just give you all kind of a rundown is the ways that we are able to receive and respond to Open Records Act requests currently. So as we've been virtual, that process has been primarily virtual, but now that we are starting to trickle back into the building, we are now able to take requests in person as well, to the extent that is people meet up with people. we are still seeing the vast majority of our requests come in via email. And that actually is the most efficient and preferred way, but we can't force people to submit requests in a particular way. We have to take them as we get them. We do have open records, dedicated open records officers in each city department. They have open records email inboxes that they share with their colleagues so that we have coverage for when people are busy or out of the office, and those are monitored and to receive the requests. I am in the process of implementing an open records management software platform that I'm very excited about. I could probably talk way too much about that and get way into the weeds, but it does offer some opportunity for in the future, actual performance metric reporting to Councilmember Hillis's request. And I'll talk about that again in a second. And then finally, I do still have a web page off of the city's website that has a lot of really important information. And because we have some new council members, I'm going to really quickly run through what that looks like, because it's a great resource for constituents or even for yourselves for answering questions about our open records process and that sort of thing. So it's not the easiest thing to find, so I like to show people where it is. From the city's main website, if you go to that little circled piece where it says I want to ... and you click on that, you'll get the drop down and you'll see the request open records right there with the red arrow. So when you click on that request open records, you get my webpage. I always ask people when I'm on the phone with them if they're there and do you see me smiling at you? If you do, then you're in the right place. So this page has links to a lot of documents and things like that that are useful in understanding how the city responds to Open Records Act requests. The most useful thing is, as you're scrolling through, at the top, the very first little red bubble you'll see with the arrow over to the hyperlink, that takes people to an alphabetized listing of all of the dedicated open records officers in the city. So there's a search bar at the top. If you're looking for Public Works, you can type Public Works into the search bar, and it will bring up the listing for the Department of Public Works, which will have the name of the open records officer, an email address, and a phone number. And you can just click on the email address and send an email directly from the web page without having the email addresses are kind of long, and so it's very useful for people to have a button that they can click on. Also, you'll see here I have links to all of the quarterly reports that I provide to the Finance and Executive Committee, so if anyone ever wants to look back and see what those look like. This will be more important going forward when we do have the performance metrics and I am able to actually report on how we are improving our compliance with the Open Records Act in various categories. And then also I have these frequently asked questions these are questions that come up a lot when I answer the phone because at the bottom of this page, I don't know that I actually show it on here, but at the bottom of the page is contact information for folks to contact me directly. And as this has been available on the website, I do get more and more calls directly from citizens who have questions about how to either submit a request or they think they may be having difficulty with the process. And so I have been talking to quite a few citizens, and these were some of the more frequently asked questions, and so there's little drop downs and there's links to the laws and things like that. I also do have a direct link to the actual Georgia Open Records Act, the city's transparency code, which was the part of the code that was added in 2018 that created my position. I link to the city's Open Records Compliance Policy, which governs how we all comply with the Open Records Act, and also our email search and retrieval protocol, which is sort of how we do email searches. So those things are linked for anyone who either needs a bit of light reading, maybe has insomnia, or actually has a question. And then finally, because people are always asking me how to get to the open records officers, there's another link at the very bottom of the page if you missed it at the top. So back to the open records management software. This has been a process that's been going on for about 2 years. It was, I think, I'd have to double check with procurement, but I think it was the very first solicitation that was let virtually after the shutdown in 2020. And that prolonged the process just a little bit, but not terribly. So we did manage to identify a vendor, and we've signed a contract. We are currently in the final stages of implementation, which is the training of the staff portion. There are two components to the open records management software. One of them is sort of the back of the house management that allows us to keep track of the requests that come in, who's handling them. We can upload the documents that need to be provided. We can do redacting in the software. It includes templates for responses and all kinds of fun stuff that's exciting to me and really boring to everybody else. But will hopefully allow us to standardize the way we receive and respond to Open Records Act requests and allow for a lot of metrics tracking. We can track the status of requests, citizens, if they, so that's the back of the house part. That's the part that we're in the final stages of right now. Once we get that working the way we want it to and we get our staff familiar with it, there is a outward-facing component to the software, which is a public access portal, which will allow citizens to log in, create a profile if they choose. They don't have to do that, but creating a profile will allow them to get automatic status updates. So every time the status of their request changes as it moves through our process, they will get an update from the portal. And so that will allow people to not have to call us to find out if they have a question about what the status of their request is. And then also, we will be able to have an audit log of all of the activities related to a particular request. That's one of the things that I'm really looking forward to. When a request comes in, it gets issued a unique identification number, and then all of the activity related to that request, regardless of who does it internally, all lines up underneath that request number, so we can take a look at all of the communication around a particular request, all of the records that have gone out, all of the redactions that have happened, and have a complete history of each request. And then finally, one thing that we are looking at is having a reading room as part of that Open Records portal, which will allow people, before they even submit a request, to look through records that have already been provided and perhaps find what they were already looking for without having to submit a new request. And that will, over time, hopefully allow us to cut back on the number of requests that we have for the same documents. So I also do Open Records compliance training. We have had a module that is part of the new employee orientation for quite some time that is working out well. I've also been working with the Human Resources Department. They've done a fantastic job in creating a self-paced online training module similar to the one that we all do for other things like ethics. Well, all the ethics one is really fancy, but like the sexual harassment or the stuff that you go into the little learning tab into Oracle. And so we're anticipating that will be available, and we'll start pushing that out over the summer, June, July timeframe. And then I also am available for targeted training on demand, either in person or virtually, and I do that for a variety of different parts of the city and also just kind of city adjacent stuff. I zoomed into the Public Safety Training Center community group people last night to help them understand open meetings. So I do that a lot, and I also get calls from all over the place. I get calls from Augusta, people in Columbus, and sometimes other states. I always have to remind them that we don't have the same laws. But so it's a big topic, transparency, and people are really excited about it. I'm starting to get calls from all over the place. And with that, that's kind of all I have for now until I kind of beat you over the head with data after we get our software up and running. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Ms. Dennis, are there any questions, colleagues? All right, good job.
All right, thank you.
As usual, thank you. All right, that takes us to our next report, which is the Internal Auditor's Quarterly Update.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
I'm Amanda Noble, City Auditor. I'm here to present our quarterly report. That did not work. So the infographic summarizes our activity for fiscal year 2022 to date. We've released 4 audit reports and 1 interim report to management, and we have 9 audits in progress that I'll talk about on the next slide. We are resuming in-person audit committee meetings for the first time since February 2020. The committee meets every other month and their next scheduled meeting is April 7th. They'll be considering 3 reports for release and considering changes to our annual audit plan to address recent City Council and management requests. We are working with departments to update the statuses of open audit recommendations. We started the year with 236 open recommendations. We hadn't done follow-up during the mandatory telework, so in the last fiscal year, so we had developed a backlog. We have implemented our new system Mission Mark this year and have been training departments how to use it. We're starting to get more updates and have closed 55 of the recommendations with 39 of those implemented. The URL on the slide shows the link to an interactive dashboard that displays the status of all the recommendations. Our continuous audit program in Oracle monitors 49 segregation of duties conflict pairs, access to 13 sensitive business activities, and then reviews 28 types of financial or HR transactions for anomalies to flag risks and red flags. We're working with departmental investigators to clean up existing access in Oracle ATL Cloud, fine-tune the controls to reduce false positives, and ensure that anomalous transactions are dealt with appropriately. We are also using the information to provide input to audit planning, both for the annual audit plan and for individual audit engagements. These are the 9 audits in progress. The first 3 should be released after audit committee approval next week, and the next 3 should be released after the June audit committee meeting. So in street lighting, we assessed operational costs compared with industry best practices. Direct payments is recommending ways to strengthen controls over departments' direct disbursement requests to pay invoices that don't go through the city's procure-to-pay process. We completed additional test work in the Office of Contract Compliance. We were unable to review hard copy documents in the audit we released last June due to mandatory telework in both of our offices. So at the audit committee's direction, we did that work now and are releasing the memo describing the results with an additional 2 recommendations. Extra Help is reviewing controls around departments' use of extra help positions. The city's budget chief had expressed concern that overuse of extra help positions was driving a projected budget deficit. Oracle Time and Labor, we're reviewing the implementation as it progresses to ensure that previously identified timekeeping control weaknesses are addressed in the new system. We've also identified and made recommendations regarding new risks and will release a final report after go live. On the Department of Watershed Management, Inventory Management, and Fixed Assets, we're assessing progress since our 2014 audit. While the department implemented most of our previous recommendations, it still stores inventory in multiple locations using different tracking systems, and reduced on-site staffing and supply chain disruptions during the COVID-19 emergency also increase risk. Cash handling, we are reviewing cash handling practices at city departments that accept payments for goods, services, permits, fines, or deposits. Handling cash or cash equivalents such as checks or money orders poses inherent risk, and again, reduction in on-site staffing increases those risks. So we're assessing controls in place to accurately collect and record payments and safeguard assets. On the Beltline Special Services District, when City Council approved legislation to create the district, it required the City Auditor's Office to provide a financial review every 2 years. This is our first review, and we are reviewing the control framework for inflow and outflow of funds and setting up how we'll do future reviews. And on employee benefits, previous performance financial audits have identified errors that resulted in inaccurate payroll deductions for benefits, delayed enrollment in benefit plans, and overpayments to healthcare providers. So our audit is assessing management of the benefits program, compliance with external regulations, and efforts to manage healthcare coverage costs. We have deferred starting our planned audit of business licensing at the CFO's request, while the department works with a consultant to address problems with Energov. We plan to start that audit and our long-deferred audit of solid waste services this spring, but may change the timing based on City Council and management requests. We have had 3 vacant positions out of a total of 17 for most of the quarter. We have filled these. We have 2 people starting tomorrow and 1 person starting in 2 weeks. We've reorganized the office to maintain specialized technical skills as resources for all teams and to develop a clear career path, promote professional development, and enhance employee retention. We'll talk more about this during our budget presentation because finalizing those will require some position changes. I'd be happy to answer questions.
All right, thank you. You beat me to my vacancy question, but let me ask about Oracle and moving the timekeeping up to the cloud. Your office did submit some preliminary sort of observations and potential concerns, and so let's just circle back with that so I know I heard you correctly. You're going to do a follow-up when? When will we get that?
We are continuing to monitor as the implementation progresses, so we're attending meetings and reviewing decisions as they come down the pike and making recommendations to the Executive Steering Committee. But we'll make our public report available after go live.
Okay, and when's go live, Mr. Bala?
So, thank you, Councilmember Shook. So, Go Live has been delayed at the moment, given some of the considerations that have been made by the city auditor, so that, as we assess this, we're making sure that we mitigate some of the issues that were raised by the city auditor before we implement the system. So, it's still ongoing conversations, and we're working with Oracle and FSS internally to make sure that the proper mitigations are put in place before Go Live. So it has been delayed at the moment.
Okay. All right. Very good. Thank you. Anything from Ms. Noble? Apparently not. Good job.
Thank you.
There is one other report that has been submitted to us as the City of Atlanta COVID-19 Funds Report. Finance does not plan on making a presentation today. It's full of, very precise data about where the money has gone, and Mr. Bala has recommended that people peruse this, and if they have follow-up questions, they can either go to the Department of Finance or specifically to Jerry Deloach, who is responsible for tracking all this. And we have no more business, so
Council Vice President Shook, Judge wanted a point of clarification. Earlier, there was a statement that was made about not being a statute of limitation with tax refunds. There is a statute of limitation, and business owners have 3 years to initiate the process of requesting the refund. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and pursuant to a conversation I had with the chair before he left, we were planning on addressing that at the next council meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. By way of announcements, okay, so recess, y'all know when recess is. It's basically as soon as y'all let me hit the gavel. So there's an FY23 budget lunch and learn, and that's Friday, April 22nd, 12 to 2. Is that right here?
It will be in Terminus Conference Room for the council members.
The large
Yes, sir.
conference room. And then who's going to be who will be tutoring us?
CFO Bala and his team.
All right, well, I'm looking forward to that. You don't mind if I audit the class, do you?
Absolutely. You can come. I think you earned all the requisite credits for that class, but they're going to be ITA for that session.
I was talking to one of the members. I said, well, really, this is kind of like getting your driver's license. Getting your driver's license doesn't teach you how to drive. It lets you drive legally. I always thought there was a market for a class after that where you would hire someone to actually teach your kid, okay, you get your driver's license, now I'm going to teach you the do's and don'ts of what goes on every time you pull out of your driveway. So we're going to have to probably subdivide some of the work about, well, here's how we would like for y'all to do it compared to the sausage making. All right, thank you. Is there anything else? All right, Mr. Bond.
Even though we're going on recess, I want to remind everybody in Atlanta that no one has to go to work on next Wednesday, as it is a national holiday, National Michael Julian Bond Day.
Okay, a.k.a. Michael Julian Bond Day.
Right, and if your boss makes you go to work, report to the HR.
All right, thank you for that. Is there anything else for the good of the body? Yes.
Just want to make an announcement that we will be holding a women's celebration for all of the former women that have served in this body, including the mayor, former presidents of council, in addition to those former council members. The projected date is May 6th for the dinner gala, and it will be May 2nd, Monday, during the council meeting presentations. Thank you.
All right, thank you. With that, we're adjourned. Make good use of your recess time. Thank you.